Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Susan. It's a pleasure to be here today. Sarah was just a few weeks old when she was diagnosed with ADA-SCID. This rare condition made her immune system so weak that even a kiss from her mother could have made her seriously ill. Thankfully, Sarah was one of the lucky ones. She was enrolled in a trial and received a gene therapy that worked. She's now 7 years old, she goes to school, she plays, she's thriving. But here's the thing. Other children diagnosed today can't access the gene therapy that saved Sarah's life. Not because the science doesn't work, but because our traditional model of drug discovery can't deliver in these cases. My name is Sam Barrell, and I'm the CEO of LifeArc, as Susan said, and LifeArc is a not-for-profit organisation. We help pioneering science overcome the barriers in order to help people with rare diseases and resistant infections. Within rare diseases, our current portfolio includes childhood cancers, rare respiratory conditions, rare neurodegenerative conditions, and motor neurone disease, which is in that bracket. So why rare diseases and resistant infections? What ties these two seemingly unrelated areas of health together? Simply, these are two areas where people are persistently overlooked. It's difficult to make progress in these areas. And one reason is because it's difficult to make money in these areas, and that has left them behind. This is a market failure, a lack of progress driven by poor commercial incentives. If you think I'm overstating the problem, there are over 7,000 identified rare diseases, and around 95% of them have no effective treatment. And in the next 25 years, antimicrobial resistance will be associated with nearly 120 million deaths. In these areas, our traditional roadmap doesn't deliver, even if the science is eminently possible. In some cases, even if the science is already being done. The conditions are complex, the costs of development are high, and the returns on investment are low. Changing these fundamentals is hard, but if approached differently, we can change them. If approached differently, these areas of unmet need reveal themselves to be areas of untapped potential. When it comes to rare diseases, some people say we can't make a difference. Other people say we can't make the numbers add up. But is that right? Only last month we heard about KJ, a baby born with CPS1 deficiency, a condition so rare and severe that half of all babies with it die within their first week. His parents were told there was no hope. But they didn't give up, and they weren't alone. In an unprecedented effort, scientists, companies, and regulators worked together to obliterate the traditional barriers to drug development. Dozens of clinician scientists focused on nothing else. The companies involved only charged for raw materials. The FDA smoothed regulatory approval. Together, they delivered a bespoke gene therapy in just 6 months. KJ has now received 3 doses. He's gaining weight. He's meeting developmental milestones. He's going home. That's what belief, urgency, and collaboration can do, even in the hardest cases. And this is more than just an inspiring story. It's a challenge to us all. One of the leaders of this project, Dr. Ernov, while celebrating this incredible achievement, said, "I don't think this could have happened in any country other than the US." We actually do have some success stories in the UK already, but we should take up this challenge, learn from what works, and prove that breakthroughs like this can happen here too. So what can we learn from KJ's story? What does drug development look like in the face of a market failure? And how can we make these stories less rare? I'm going to suggest 3 ways we can rebalance the odds in favor of making a difference and making the numbers add up. First, think and act boldly in the ideas you entertain and the partners you seek. Secondly, de-risk the proposition by absorbing or spreading the costs of entry, making the sums more attractive for whoever might take the baton next. And thirdly, embrace technology, including AI, based on quality data to speed up and potentially revolutionize the process. I'll now briefly go into these in a little bit more detail. The first way we can succeed in the face of market failures is by thinking and acting boldly. I don't say this lightly. I mean taking seriously the examples we have from within and beyond life sciences of when the traditional roadmap has been rethought. The way Uber revolutionized transport by turning private cars into on-demand taxis, removing the need for traditional dispatch systems, or the way Spotify and Netflix changed the way we consume music and TV, making access instant and limitless. I should make it clear, I'm not endorsing any of these platforms or their histories. I know that would be controversial. In fact, I'm using these examples because they are controversial. In each of these systems and situations, traditional players lose out. It's a paradigm shift, and it doesn't always feel comfortable, but it prioritizes the need of the end user over traditional ways of working. As earlier speakers have said, often the standard timeline for developing and improving a pharmaceutical intervention can be as long as 10 to 15 years. There are obviously good reasons for this, including the utmost importance of safety. But in a lot of cases, there are also poor reasons. Too often, delay is caused by inefficient systems, weak incentives, a lack of coordination, or other blocks on innovative thinking. Later, I'll mention that new technology can help here. AI applications could considerably shorten our traditional drug journey. But we must be careful not to lean only on new technology in order to move faster. We also need to think disruptively about how we work. The COVID-19 pandemic is now a leading example of how necessity can drive innovative thinking and agile processes. But there are more recent examples of people who are working innovatively to find new paths. Earlier this year, Gunreet, a 3-year-old girl from West London with a rare, life-threatening condition, became the youngest patient in the UK to receive a gene therapy infused directly into the brain. Before her diagnosis, she couldn't hold up her head, reach for toys, or stop crying. Now she can smile, she's learned to roll, she's trying to sit. Crucially, Gunreet's story isn't just about one child beating the odds. It's about a system breaking through its own constraints. Her treatment overcame some of the most entrenched hurdles in our traditional roadmap. A therapy for a condition so rare it would never make it through a traditional commercial pipeline. But in this instance, the NHS stepped in to commission it. A drug already approved in Europe, but fast-tracked here through a centralized access pathway. A treatment requiring extraordinary precision, delivered by a specialist team at Great Ormond Street Hospital. And perhaps, most importantly, a system willing to believe that a child like Gunreet was worth treating. In this one case, several of the hardest barriers in the traditional roadmap were overcome. No clear path to access, no infrastructure, and no belief it could work. Gunreat's story shows us what's possible if we think and act boldly and build a system to match the science. The second way we can succeed in the face of market failures is partnering to absorb or spread the initial risk, helping a project reach a stage where it becomes commercially viable. I told you earlier about Sarah, a 7-year-old cured of a rare disease by gene therapy, which still isn't available to the other children who need it. To change this, we're exploring a partnership with Great Ormond Street Hospital and the UCL Great Ormond Street Institute of Child Health. Our plan is to see the NHS Trust hold the market authorization for the gene therapy so that patients can directly benefit. This would be a first. And the crucial step will be to use not-for-profit money to overcome the challenging costs, to build the infrastructure, recruit the talent, and clear the early barriers that hold too many innovations back. Importantly, once these treatments are routinely available in the NHS, the centre will be able to recover its cost and make it more attractive commercially. This approach, or of absorbing costs, is particularly useful in the case of repurposing or rescuing shelved assets. We all know what it's like to find something at home which you'd loved but had forgotten about. Imagine if what you found was a life-changing treatment for a loved one. That's what happened with Gomekli, a drug for neurofibromatosis that was shelved due to limited commercial viability. In 2017, we joined Pfizer, Bain Capital, and OrbiMed to launch SpringWorks Therapeutics, a new company formed to take on promising but overlooked therapies. One of them was Gomekli, which went on to deliver strong trial results and win FDA approval under priority review this February, an extraordinary milestone. Of course, absorbing costs this way isn't always a sustainable option, even for not-for-profits, whose pockets have limits like everyone else's. Sometimes it's about spreading the cost and risk through collective partnerships where no single organisation carries the burden alone. One example is our new pilot programme to back promising trial-ready treatments for rare diseases that can't get commercial funding. These assets are stuck at the end of the preclinical pipeline because of high costs and risk. They need not-for-profit funding to get through costly clinical proof of concept stages, from regulatory submissions to recruiting cohorts and showing safety and efficacy. We've received so many high-quality proposals for the pilot, we're already discussing what the future of this programme might look like. Spreading the cost is exactly the model we're pursuing with the Fleming Initiative, a major international collaborative effort to tackle antimicrobial resistance. We're proud to be co-founders of the initiative alongside GSK and others. It's a testament to the possibility of cross-sector partnerships, but more importantly, to the fact that a shared commitment changes the equation of a market failure. When there are multiple parties, suddenly it's more attractive to be involved. A similar idea can be applied to infrastructure, which we're passionate about at LifeArc. In fields like rare diseases, where we're so far behind, we simply can't afford to be uncoordinated or duplicative. That's why we've committed 40 million to 4 rare disease translational centres and 18 million in partnerships to 4 lung hub-focused innovation hubs. The goal of these investments is to create shared platforms which make the proposition of rare disease research more attractive. They will do this by bringing scientists, clinicians, industry, and funders together to move faster and more effectively than any of us could do alone. Here is a short video which summarises our aims for the translational centres for rare diseases.
There are thought to be over 7,000 rare diseases. 95% of those lack a licensed treatment.
One of the biggest challenges is in the name. They're rare diseases. You have to collect together patients and families over a very large area.
The real hurdle has been, how do we take discoveries and therapies to trials, to patients, to outcomes, to commercialisation?
It takes time, and that time is what delays the advent of new therapies.
On average, it takes over 5 years for rare disease patients to be diagnosed.
I think there are multiple moral, ethical and regulatory barriers.
Our research has been fragmented, poorly funded.
Fragmentation like that gives rise to health inequality.
We have an incredible NHS, we have incredible patient groups, we have incredible scientists, but rarely do we work together because we don't have the mechanisms or the structures to do that. The opportunity now is to come together, work together and change the landscape.
LifeArc has invested £40 million into 4 centres around the UK. These translational centres for rare diseases will unlock new tests, treatments and potential cures for those living with rare conditions.
So our centre prioritises children with rare kidney diseases.
Our centre's focusing on rare inherited mitochondrial disorders.
The Rare Respiratory Disease Centre works across both paediatrics and adult respiratory medicine.
Our primary focus is to accelerate, deliver and evaluate high quality trials.
The centres will be connected by a hub led by LifeArc, Genetic Alliance UK and Beacon for Rare Diseases. The hub will provide support around policy and patient engagement to facilitate collaboration across the centres and with the rare disease community.
We have collectively a vision to go right from the beginning, which is the basic science, all the way through to an NHS clinic and a system to deliver care that is available to everybody.
Having that envelope of LifeArc around us with their history, their commercial capability and our partnerships will allow us to make those crucial steps.
In order to maximise the impact from these centres, they will be sharing their knowledge, experience and skills with each other.
We're open for business. We're interested to hear from patients and families all over the country.
Our centre is an open, porous centre with the ability to interact, collaborate, co-bid for funding and also start to join our initiatives.
We are an accelerator centre. We can walk you through all of the steps that you need to do, up to and including partnering you with industry.
We hope that this will develop a perpetual learning environment so that everybody bringing together their pooled experience will be a phenomenal effort to really start to see improvements for patients.
LifeArc centres have absolutely captured the imagination of investigators and industry and patient groups.
And that's genuinely exciting. It will do 2 things. It will build communities, but most importantly, it will rapidly translate our discoveries into tangible therapies.
I think what they will achieve is like something we've never seen before in the rare disease field.
To rethink our traditional roadmap is by embracing technology, especially data and AI. These tools don't just promise new science, they offer a new economic model for tackling disease. Soon, automated robotics will run hundreds of times more experiments than a human with a pipette. AI-driven labs in the loop will allow continuous learning and shave years off developmental timelines. We've already seen this in antimicrobial resistance. In one example from the Fleming Initiative, DeepMind's AI reached a complex hypothesis about AMR transmission in days, a process that had taken scientists years. These breakthroughs allow us to handle complexity, cut costs, and make the hard-to-treat commercially viable. They don't just speed up the old roadmap, they invite us to redraw it entirely. But as you will know, AI is only as good as the data it is trained on. As part of our £40 million commitment to rare disease centres, we're backing work to securely link data from across the UK to make rare disease trials faster and more efficient. As a founding partner in Our Future Health, we're working to shape the future of population-level health research. Over 2.4 million volunteers have signed up, and researchers are already drawing insights from the data of 1.8 million of those volunteers. Next week, we will publish a report which, among other things, recommends that rare diseases must be designed into the UK's new Health Data Research Service from the start, alongside better international interoperability and stronger patient involvement. This complex work will need all of us, including our long-term collaborators like Genomics England and the UK Dementia Research Institute, to ensure data leads to real change for people living with rare conditions. So these are the 3 ways we can make progress with drug discovery in the face of market failures. First, think and act boldly. Second, partner to absorb or spread the initial risk. Third, embrace technology, especially data and AI. But there's a temptation to think of these areas, rare diseases and resistant infections, as worthy but not strategic. Philanthropic side projects and not much more. But that's not how we see them, and we're not alone. Takeda's acquisition of Shah in 2019 and AstraZeneca's acquisition of Alexion in 2021 reflects serious long-term bets on rare disease innovation. And it's not just the established players. According to McKinsey in 2024, biotech companies which launch for the first time in rare diseases succeed commercially more often than those operating in more saturated areas. Commercial players see the opportunity to rethink where and how innovation happens. One reason is that science is unpredictable. You might find something biologically in a rare disease which applies to common conditions. And although it's challenging to run trials for small patient populations, innovating safely in this area could teach us lessons that speed up patient access to treatments in all areas. And of course, the future of medicine for all of us is more personalized, more precise, and more patient-led. That's the world rare disease and resistant infection research is already navigating. So let's not call them outliers, let's call them pathfinders. They are scientifically significant, increasingly fundable, and they are waiting for us. If we are willing to rethink the roadmap, we can unlock both impact and income. Together, we can make life science life-changing. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Sam. Thank you for being provocative and stimulating. Can you see if there are any questions that were out there? If not, I'll start with one. I'll come to you in a second. So you rightly pointed out that at AstraZeneca we've had the acquisition of Alexion. One of the things I've learned from watching that is that there's a utility in targeting a particular area. Complement, for example, is what the core area. And there's been multiple opportunities that have come off the back of that, addressing multiple different rare diseases. So is that a pattern that you see more broadly across the area that can enable the commercialization to be attractive because you've built that specialization?
Yes, and I think that's exactly the point. I don't think, I mean, obviously there are so many rare diseases. I think if you start from that rare disease end, and I'm not saying you shouldn't always not do that, but I'm saying if you start from that rare disease end and work back, that can be very challenging. Because you might not always understand the biology well enough. There might not be the scientific mechanism ready. But if you actually look at the scientific mechanisms and look at where they could be grouped together, and then look at how that could apply to the rare disease space, I think you have much more chance of success. I think it's a much better strategy.
It's very interesting. Sorry, there's a question over there.
Thanks very much for the talk. It's just a question about whether you think rare diseases should go through the same economic review, nice economic review that other common diseases go through, or whether there should be a different type of kind of economic review by NICE for rare diseases.
Yes, I mean, it's a very good question. I mean, I personally think that they are different. For example, if you take ultra-rare disease, the economic costs of treating someone with a very disabling, devastating ultra-rare disease over a lifetime can be really, really significant. And I think that we're not always thinking about that as much as we need to relative to the upfront one-off cost of the treatment, which of course can be high. And I think it's partly because we're not joining up those economic arguments into one central argument as much as we need to. And it's something that we certainly intend to look at LifeArc, is how we can create that case better. The budgets sit in different areas of the system as well. So if a tertiary hospital wants to pay for a particularly expensive gene therapy product, for example, and you're arguing the case for investment is the fact that if you do that, the lifetime costs to the NHS, for example, would be less. Those budgetary costs don't just sit within that tertiary hospital space. So joining up the system better to look at this more holistically, I think, is really important. I also think with the regulator, and I'm off to see Lawrence, if he's here listening in any way, online or anything, fairly soon in July, I do think we need to do something more specific around rare disease, because it is a different approach that you sometimes need, and particularly also in the ultra-rare space. So I do think just lumping it with all mainstream medicine isn't so helpful, and is definitely one of the reasons that progress is being slowed at the moment.
Thank you. I think there was another question in the front here.
So, I'm actually going to own up to being a clinical geneticist, so rare disease is definitely my thing. Gosh, before, so that's so I'm obviously coming at it from a particular direction. I mean, I guess one thing I would really emphasise that I think you have said is that, of course, rare and common overlap with each other.
Yeah.
So, you might argue lecanemab is the outcome of identifying APP mutations in a small family, in fact. But what I was going to ask you more generally, though, was I can see sort of two strategies going on with rare disease. One of them might be to say that the approach should be to, as you say, look at the basic biology in areas and try and link up rare diseases that are not really unconnected to each other. They're actually connected through the same molecular pathways.
Yeah.
Another approach to tackling rare diseases might be very platform-based, which might be to say, are there generic ways of targeting genes? And it doesn't matter, so this could be an approach which might take on all loss of function mutations, or an approach that might take all splicing mutations, and that would be a strategy. I don't know which one you think is going to be more successful and which one you're betting on, or whether you're betting on both.
Well, I think we don't know for sure, to be honest. What we're betting on at the moment is just trying to create some impact, that's our goal, in the next 3 to 5 years. We've deliberately made the timeline really short, which is going to be pretty challenging. And we're basically scoping opportunities where we think we have the very best opportunity for success. So where we understand the biology of the individual rare disease, we have a scientific mechanism we think might work, we have a company, either an academic or a clinician scientist or a biotech company, that has taken it through those preclinical stages. And then if we fund phase 1 and phase 2, and we know what the exit strategy might be to get it to the patient in the end, then we hope that approach of just targeting those areas might get us to an impact in 3 to 5 years. So we are going to use quite a flexible approach. Sometimes it might be repurposed drugs, sometimes it might be shelved assets, sometimes it might be one mechanism of looking at things, sometimes it might be another. We are trying to stick a bit to our kind of theme areas we're already in, rather than diversify into whole new sectors we've got less experience in. So we will probably initially try out these approaches in respiratory, neurodegeneration, childhood cancer, ultra-rare, our centres, the specialist centres, rather than go into something completely different. But if somebody's got a good proposition for us and we think it could make it, we're certainly going to be interested. We're sort of, in a sense, slightly disease agnostic. We just want to prove success and prove that the methodology can work.
Okay. We've just got time for one more question at the front here. Thank you.
In the same vein, a lot of these diseases are low penetrance and low expressivity, meaning there's probably people with subclinical indications that carry the same genetic underpinnings. If that's true, then there's actually a bigger addressable market for therapies if we start considering the things that aren't the canonical symptoms. Even cystic fibrosis is an extreme example of that. Fragile X is, in a sense, an extreme example of that. Do you have a perspective on that and what opportunities we could unlock if we start thinking of the less acute indications as the same disease?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I feel actually there was a lot of commercial interest in the rare disease space, and I feel it has tapered off a bit. Obviously, some forward-looking companies have taken on the mantle, but many have fallen away. Certainly, we're hearing from the biotech community that there's a massive gap in that immediate preclinical into clinical trial phase for rare diseases, and yet they've got very strong, promising science and data. And so I think what we're hoping is if we de-risk it a bit through trial. So I am hoping that if we can demonstrate in the next 3 to 5 years some tangible successes, that this will start people gaining more confidence again in the market and begin to realise the wider commercial opportunities the market could bring. Because obviously we're not going to be a solo player. We're going to collaborate with all the key partners that would make us more likely to succeed, and hopefully we'll generate enough interest that it creates momentum for more people to come into the space, because I agree with you completely. I think there's some very strong commercial opportunities in the space.
Thank you, Sam. You've made
Thank
a great
you.
case for that. Thank you very much.